Hey there, anime aficionados! Gonna do another anime review this time. Again, apologize in advance for using fan subs. I have no other option for this one. In fact, this is not even fully fan subbed. I just really want to review. I just want to review it just to give it a fair chance because no one ever does. This is Naikaku. Okay, let me just use the English title because it's a really long title. It's a government crime investigation agent. Zaizen Jotaro, or if you want to use the English Western style of naming, Jotaro Zaizen. It's become a bit of an infamous show. Let's just get the footage going. Again, there's subs so you can at least read what's going on. I'm gonna leave it at half mute. So this was a title that was originally on manga that was serialized in Comic Bunch, the same magazine that has the City Hunter spin-off, in a sense, Angel Heart, as well as Fist of the North Star prequel, Soten no Ken, Fist of the Blue Sky. This ran 17 volumes from 2004 to 2007. In 2006, Transarts, the people behind shows like Prince of Tennis anime, decided to do an anime adaptation of Zaizen Jotaro. It aired from early July of 2006, and after 11 episodes, it ended in late September of 2006. Unfortunately, around that time, there was another show that aired roughly around the same time this one did, especially when it started. It was Gundoh Musashi. Now we're let me, of course, show off the opening. The opening is called Zero no Kimochi by Doa, D-O-A. There it is. Naikaku Kenryoku Hanzai, Kyousei Torishimarikan, Zaizen Jotaro. Or, as I said, Government Crime Investigation Agent. So yeah, that's Zaizen Jotaro, or Jotaro Zaizen, however you want to pronounce it. I'll just call him Zaizen for short. So pretty much, this might be a little spoiler, but you do find out about his past, about what kind of guy he really is, as the show goes about halfway through the show. 7 episodes have been fan subbed, so I can only go off with those first 7. But pretty much, Zaizen is a former, he used to work for the Japanese government as an agent. Him and his partner were going to do a drug sting that involved a international ambassador. You know, he had some relations to some drugs and everything, so they were going to try to, you know, do a drug bust and pretty much find him guilty. Unfortunately, the ambassador had paid off the Japanese parliament to let him get away with this, and in the process, from what is official, Zaizen was killed in the bust, the unsuccessful bust. But in reality, his partner had just told him to lay low in the United States while his partner tries to get something going. A little plan he's been having, and that pretty much ended becoming the GCIA, the Government Crime Investigation Agency. And yeah, I'm starting with episode 2 because straight up, episode 1 is bad. It's one of the worst first episodes you'll ever see. It is not fully indicative of this show. But anyway, the GCIA is pretty much in this manga, in this story, it's pretty much the Japanese equivalent of the FBI. So pretty much, Zaizen was pretty much a man who was all about justice. He wanted to make sure any evildoers were caught, they were, punished. And, when he saw that with money, these political people can get away with anything, he didn't want that. He wanted to make sure they go, he wanted to have the power to be able to put them behind bars, have them be punished. And as part of the GCIA, that gives him the ability to do so. Another thing that Zaizen does have, though, and he's kind of mixed it together as, it's his badge as well as his credit card. It's the Zaire's Gold Black credit card. Pretty much what that is, he reveals that, oh wait, here we go. Da Bum. That's one of that's his trademark saying, in a sense. It's pretty quiet, so let me raise the volume a little bit. So that way I can you can probably still hear it somewhat. There we go. Sorry about that. But yeah, pretty much the Zaire's Gold Black credit card, what happened was, during one of Zaizen's adventures, he was in a desert in Africa, not really sure where he is, but he ends up saving this man. This man actually ends up revealing himself to be the prince of this very wealthy country. And as a repayment for saving his life, the prince, I believe his name was Zaizen, he pretty much gives Zaizen this gold black credit card, the Zaizen Gold Black, and pretty much what it is, it pretty much gives Zaizen unlimited funds. He can pretty much buy whatever he wants. Like at the end of the first episode, he's going after, you know, this corrupt businessman, and in order to make sure he gets them, he pretty much, you know, calls in. He's in North America for that episode, so he calls in the Los Angeles SWAT team. Well, and you know, he's able to buy suits, and he's able to pretty much buy anything he wants with the Zaizen Gold Black, the Gold Black card. Now, in the first episode, I'm skipping the first episode because it's just so over the top and silly, and it's just, there is silliness to the show. That's mainly through Zaizen himself. He's a guy who doesn't take, he only goes serious when he's challenged. See, there you go. He does again his da bomb. He's pretty much, he only goes serious when he knows he has to. Otherwise, he's a pretty fun-loving guy. So he used to be a police detective for Keisho. This is what he used to be. Everyone's supposed to think, oh, wait a minute, he's supposed to be dead, isn't he? You know, he can't be alive, because according to the official records, he was killed 3 years ago while doing in that failed drug bust. But in reality, as I said, he was just meant to lay low until the GCIA was created. And in fact, the GCIA, you know, while here in North America, we all know the FBI exists. In this title, though, the GCIA is supposed to be like this kind of undercover group. Now, you know, as I said, just forget, you know, unfortunately, I would still say watch the first episode, you know, because it kind of does introduce Aizen a little better, but don't treat it as the actual, you know, representation of what the entire series is about. Unfortunately, a lot of reviews you see on the internet are just going off that first episode, because a lot of them were made when the show was airing, so they can only go off that first episode. What happens, though, in reality, is the rest of the episodes, 2 through 10, focuses on this story, where you have the, as you heard before, the Oshika Construction Company, and its leader, Matsuzaka, is pretty much, you know, teaming up with one of the members of the Japanese Parliament, and pretty much saying, you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You know, you give me a little money, and, you know, I'll help you with, you know, your election, and make sure you stay in power and get your, whatever, you know, laws you want enacted. We'll make sure you get this. As you can see, though, there is a bit of a, but I'll get to the animation quality in a little bit, because this will be a 2-part video, of course. And what happens, though, is that the member of the Japanese Parliament, forgive me for names, these are very Japanese names, so I can't remember all of them. But the member of Parliament also has ties with a local Japanese Yakuza family. So, you know, it's very corrupt politics, and this is the kind of stuff that Zaizen is against. This is the kind of stuff he wants to make sure is stopped. And that's pretty much what the story's about. It's about Zaizen, you know, going up against these two, going up against the Yakuza, gaining some allies that were related to these people. Yes, you have Matsuzaka, who's the owner of the Oshika Construction Company, and Suzuki, who's the member of Parliament. And, you know, we'll just continue. So right now they're talking about, you know, we got to do something to make it seem like, you know, none of this is really going on. We gotta pretty much, you know, hold it. In this episode, they want to put one of their employees as a scapegoat. That's the character Mochizuki. Now, I'll just explain. Pretty much what happens is he's about to be killed, Zaizen saves him, and then he also decides, you know what, we'll fake your death. That way, you know, you can help me out, you know your way around this stuff, so you can, there's Mochizuki, I believe. Yeah, that's Mochizuki. So pretty much, you know, Zaizen fakes Mochizuki's death. In fact, to the point where, Mochizuki, you better play dead, because your family, your wife and your daughter is right here. You better not blow this. And, you know, pretty much by having Mochizuki officially be dead like Zaizen is, they can go around doing their investigation and trying to stop everything. Now, before this part 1 ends, let me just get to really fast about the animation quality. Yes, you can tell it's done on the cheap. There's a lot of cut-ins. There's a lot of, you know, stuff as you see, like Mochizuki was looking at his camera, and then all of a sudden it cuts in to, you know, his bosses at the construction company. And there's a lot of that. I mean, TransArts definitely, they probably felt, you know what, we don't have to really do any big budget on this show. It's the kind of show that you don't need a big budget for. It's a, you know, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of, you know, pictures. You don't need to talk a lot. You don't need to blow the bank on this. You don't even need to do a big budget. So, yeah, it's definitely a low animation quality show. But I'll be honest, TransArts works with the cut-ins really nicely, and even though it's a low budget, it's not. It doesn't look horrible. I think a lot of people, when they saw the show, they go, "Oh my god, it's so low budget. Oh my god, it looks horrible. This is one of the worst shows I've ever seen. That first episode was so over the top and stupid." You know, and they make all these assumptions off the first episode. But in reality, that first episode, animation quality aside, story-wise and for, you know, everything aside like that, the first episode is not indicative whatsoever about the show. So, you know, of course, now, you know, now they're playing each other like this. Now, of course, they're playing him like, oh, you know, please, you know. And, you know, Mochizuki unknowingly is going to become the scapegoat, and Zaizen's going to have to save him. He saw Zaizen's already there watching, so Zaizen's always around. So, this is the end of part 1. Get to part 2, and we'll talk about the other parts of the show.